Good morning, folks. Less than an hour ago, Reuters ran a story which, if true, confirms my analysis and what I've predicted all along for this fiscal year. The title of the article, written by Ted Hessen, says President Donald Trump's administration is considering more than doubling an annual refugee limit to bring more white South Africans into the U.S., according to three people familiar with the matter. Now, I'll correct the headline. It's not about bringing white people into the country, and the journalist knows better. I've been in contact with him all along. This is about bringing South Africans suffering from unjust racial persecution. And the fact of the matter is that while predominantly the refugees are white, they're not exclusively white. And the numbers are not insignificant or trivial of those who are not white. I have interviewed white, black, colored, and Indian South Africans, and I've met them traveling across this country, which no other journalist has done. Anyone working for a legacy fake media outlet or an independent journalist. In recent weeks, U.S. officials have discussed expanding the 7,500 person refugee cap by 10,000 to allow more South Africans of Afrikaner ethnicity to obtain refugee status, said people familiar with internal planning who spoke on the condition of anonymity to share non-public government discussions. Well, let's correct the record. Yes, there will be Afrikaner ethnicity coming, but many of the people coming are not Afrikaners. They're English-speaking South Africans, they're coloreds, they're Indians, and they're black South Africans. So let's fix that record right now. But the big news here, if true, is an additional 10,000. Now, I have told my audience from the outset, do not lose sleep over this so-called cap of 10,000. It's a planning figure. Now, unfortunately, I lost someone who claimed to be a longtime viewer who took offense when I refuted his claim that the cap has never been busted. The cap has been busted repeatedly. He was correct in stating that the cap has never been busted. But my point, which I didn't bother elaborating because it was in the middle of a conversation, is that the cap gets busted, and it does get busted. They go beyond it by using other mechanisms like humanitarian parole or temporary and protected status. That's how they get around it. They bring those people in, and then they arrive here, and they're given essentially refugee status, and they get the benefits that refugees get and the entitlements that refugees get. So as I've stated all along since people became apoplectic over the 7,500 person cap, I said, take a deep breath. First off, only 7,000 are for South Africans, all right? The other 500 were for people from around the world. And now, according to Reuters, the cap will be more than doubled. More than doubled. Now, if true, that would raise the cap from 7,000 South Africans out of the 7,500 allocation for fiscal year 2026 to as much as 17,000. Given that just over 5,000 South Africans have arrived this fiscal year since October, that means approximately another 12,000 would arrive by 30 September. 12,000 by 30 September. Ladies and gentlemen, that's 2,400 additional refugees per month. We only have 5 months left in the fiscal year. May, June, July, August, September. That's it. So 5 months left in this fiscal year, which is what this topic is all about, and what this figure relates to, would mean that an average of 2,400 refugees would arrive every month between now and 30 September. Now, that is in far excess of the average monthly arrival pace thus far under this program. The White House referred questions to the State Department. The State Department spokesman did not confirm or deny the discussions around expanding the refugee emissions ceiling. But as we've seen, Reuters has pretty good leaking sources from the U.S. government who've been pretty accurate when Reuters has reported information in the past. The only thing Reuters seems to have difficulty understanding is that they're not a propaganda outlet, they're a media outlet, and their task is to report the facts. And the fact that they've refused to report that non-Afrikaners are coming over is disturbing. Nonetheless, their sources are pretty good. Comment from the State Department, a spokesperson. If the president decides to raise the FY 2026 refugee admissions cap, he will do so at the appropriate time, and any numbers discussed at this point are only speculation. Now, according to Reuters, the Trump administration is also discussing bringing in refugees from other nationalities. But I thought Trump was a racist. He only lets white Afrikaners come to America. That's a lie. But he's so mean. That's a lie. Yes. Other nationalities. U.S. officials are weighing whether religious minorities from Iran and countries that used to be part of the Soviet Union could be included under the Lautenberg program. Now, that program comes from 1989 budget amendment introduced by then Senator Frank Lautenberg that aimed to make it easier for Jewish refugees from the Soviet Union to resettle in the United States. Trump has portrayed South Africa as dangerous and oppressive for whites, yet thousands of white South Africans abroad have returned to the country in recent years, according to Reuters back in March and again in this story. Yet far more South Africans, white, black, and brown, have abandoned South Africa in that time frame. You see, folks, objectivity is objectivity. Bias is bias. Propaganda is propaganda. A full and complete story would have not included that sentence that the country has thousands of whites returning. It's simply factually incorrect. Far more have abandoned South Africa forever to go elsewhere: Australia, New Zealand, Canada, China, Vietnam, U.S., Ireland. Far more have left the country than have come back. It is normal for people to come home, particularly those who are on a visa, on a temporary status, working in the UK, working in Canada, working in the United States. Your visa is going to expire. Your term, your contract is up. You return home. To include that in the story is far from objective. And also, intellectually, I have to say it's a bit dishonest. The bottom line here, folks, the administration purportedly, according to Reuters, is considering raising the cap by another 10,000 or more, which could mean that between now and 30 September, an average of 2,400 South Africans would arrive in the United States to join the 5,000 plus already here. What say you, South Africa? Mzansi? Cheers.